The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus went about in Galilee. He did not wish to go about in Judea because of the religious leaders who were looking for an opportunity to kill him. Now, the festival of booths was near, and after his brothers had gone to the festival, he also went up. Now, some of the people of Jerusalem were saying, "Is not this the man the authorities are trying to kill? And here he is, speaking openly, but they say nothing to him. Can it be that the authorities really know that this is the Messiah? Yet we know where this man is from, but when the Messiah comes, nobody will know where he is from." Then Jesus cried out as he was teaching in the temple, "You know me, and you know where I am from? I have not come on my own, but the one who sent me is true, and you do not know him. I do know him, because I am from him, and he sent me." Then they tried to arrest Jesus, but nobody laid hands on him, because his hour had not yet come. The Gospel inspired by God. How can you know God if you don't know yourself? How could you know anybody else if you don't know yourself? So today, I believe, is John's version of the synoptics talking about Jesus asking, "Who do people say that I am?" In the three synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, almost mathematically precisely in the center of each of the Gospels is this key question, where Jesus is walking ahead of the group near a village called Caesarea Philippi, and he's deep in thought. Meanwhile, the guys are behind arguing about which of them is going to get what portfolio when Christ becomes the Messiah. Who's being in charge of defense? Who'll be in charge of education? Who'll be in charge of medicine? And they're arguing who's going to be the most important. And Christ stops on the road, lets them catch up, and he says, "Who do people think that I am?" I said, "Well, some people think you're John the Baptist come back to life. Some people think you're one of the Old Testament prophets." He said, "Okay, so that's the crowd. They don't really know who I am. What about you guys? Who do you think that I am?" And then Peter makes his famous response, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." But the most important question was the one that Christ had been asking of himself on the road before he stopped and asked them what they thought. And that was, "Who do I think that I am?" And so that's the most important of all the questions. Now it's interesting, Thomas' Gospel has a different version of this story. There's a great version in Thomas' Gospel where Christ asked them the same question, who do you think that I am? And Levi says, "You're a sage." Somebody else, "You're a great philosopher. You're an angel." And then he says to Thomas, "Thomas, who do you think that I am?" And Thomas says, "My mouth cannot speak it." And Christ realizes that Thomas is getting it at a level that the other guys aren't getting it. So he takes Thomas aside and there's a conversation just between Jesus and Thomas. And then Thomas comes back to the crowd and they say, "What did he say to you?" And Thomas says, "I can't tell you. If I tell you what happened, what we said, you'll take up stones and you'll try to kill me." So what happened between Jesus and Thomas? I think what happened was Jesus said to him, "Who do you think? Who are you?" And Thomas says, "Me. I'm Thomas." Jesus says, No. "Who are you?" And Thomas got it. He says, "I am the Christ, the Son of the living God, just like you are." And so now they come back and they join the group and they say, "What did he say to you?" If Thomas says, "I am the Christ," they're going to take up stones and kill him. So that was Thomas's version. But this is John's version here today. And in John's version, the crowd see him in the temple. They know that the Jewish leaders have been trying to kill him. And here he is preaching publicly. And they say, can it be that they fully realize suddenly that this is the Messiah? But we know where this guy is from. Listen to his accent. He's from Galilee, for God's help. Whoever heard of the Messiah coming from Galilee? So when the Messiah comes, we won't know, where he's from or who he is, but we know who this guy is and we know where he's from. And Christ says, "Okay, so you think you know me? You know me and you know where I'm from? And so you think that if you know who somebody is and where they're from, you've understood who they are? And the truth is, you do not know me and you do not know where I'm from. I know who I am and I know where I'm from." Now, because Jesus was claiming to be different from everybody else, they wanted to kill him. If you grew up as a Christian from about 300 AD right up to our own time, if you claim that Jesus wasn't different, they'll want to kill you. And so you lose coming and you're going. So for the Jewish authorities, they wanted to kill him because he was claiming he was different from everybody else. And for Christianity, for most of its history, they'd kill you if you didn't believe he was different from somebody else. So you can't win for losing. So what was different about Jesus? The only thing that's different about Jesus is that Jesus knew who he was, and the rest of us don't know who we are. Most of us identify with a name, or we identify with an accent, or we identify with a profession, or we identify with a family, or we identify with an ethnic group, or we identify, with, our appearance, our physical appearance, and we're not any of those things. We're just as Jesus was, we're bite-sized pieces of source who have volunteered for a human experience. But we get identified with the costumes. It's like, we're like a group of kids, who've discovered an old abandoned theatre, and they break into it and they find all these costumes. There's a costume for a king, and there's a costume for an astronaut, and there's a costume for pirates, and there's a costume for cowboys and Indians, and we dress up, and we're going, and then it's dinner time, and we take off our costume and go back home to eat our dinner. But for the period of the play, we think we're the cowboys, or we think we're the Indians, or we think we're the pirates. And most of us wind up our entire lives thinking we are the costumes we're wearing, the roles we're playing. And we're not any of these things. And so that's what Christ is saying. You're misidentifying my accent and my appearance and my, where I'm from, and you think that that's really who I am. You don't get it. And you don't get who you really are yourselves. If you're still identified with relationships, or with a profession that you're practicing, or an accent that you have, you don't know who you are. Every single one of us is God in drag. Every single one of us is a unique way in which God experiences herself in human form. And that's who we really are. When you get that, you realize that it's God's game, that we're literally dreams that God is having. And when we understand that, then we can begin to identify the God in everybody else. So when you know who you really, really are, then you know who God is, and then you know who everybody else is.